Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lawrence, the host of the Leaders Podcast. Today, I have another great, wonderful guest for you, my new good friend, Jonny Bear, based in New Zealand. Our good common friend, our brother, Jacob, connected us. We had a beautiful conversation about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And wow, what a powerful story Jonny has. Where can I start about him? So much to say. In one nutshell, is the Soulfire Cuisine and the Soul Chef. Yeah, he's done a lot. He's doing a lot of beautiful things. Just a little bit about him. Um, at 23, he was an executive chef at a hotel in Boston. He came from an abusive childhood, escaped that, and got into hospitality as a chef. And he worked his way up the ladder very fast. Became an executive chef, as I said, at a hotel in Boston in 23. And ever since has been doing a lot of good things, combining both food, cuisine, and the soul, and inspiring and helping others in a way to really make them, find a path and helping those that are really the most needed the most. For example, he set up 7 years ago, he set up the Sanctuary Charitable Trust, shared co-living, and 2 years ago, he bought a house that it turned into the main house and then a sharing shed where they can gather with groups able to host up to 40 people, and they can have up to 12 people reside there, helping especially those who are at the very bottom, like youth and the youth or societal, for example. And he's currently working with local schools, helping spread the word, spread positivity and inspiration to those who need it the most. And one thing I love about what he does is that they don't turn people away. They help everyone, especially those that need it the most and happen to have no money. Just like he says, with mindful curiosity. And yeah, he's also blessed to be working side by side with his soulmate Sandra, who's working also with Divine Feminine Reiki. She's doing a lot of stuff. Some of the one that he mentioned are New Zealand plant essences, and he's been using food for medicine and helping that and doing a lot of good things, a lot of impact out there. And yeah, it's all about transformation, healing your life, your soul, and through food, through not only food that you put in your body, but also food, the thoughts you entertain in your mind. So a lot of good stuff that he's been doing, a lot of amazing thing actually. And I'm really happy to have him here today. We're gonna dive into all of this, and I have a feeling that we'll be doing more than just one episode. So without any further ado, Jonny, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you. I'm honored to be on your show here, Payman, and thank you for the guidance that you've also given me as we're starting to promote ourselves a little bit more on the international scene. So thank you, brother. It's really
Le-
appreciated.
Pleasure's all mine, and absolutely, I love helping people, inspiring, empowering people. My motto is helping good people with beautiful hearts and powerful messages to win and to help you shine brighter than you're currently shining. And if I can do that, I'd be honored to do so. And I love the shirt you're wearing and the dragon at the back.
Yeah,
So that's amazing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, they're all part of my journey
mm,
because I had, as you said, I had started in a from a childhood that was quite
mm,
challenging, and there was a lot of abuse or whatever without dropping into the story. So my, I guess, way to get out of the neighborhood and get out and become a lot more self-sufficient was as a chef. And I always joke that from the time I was about 10 years old, I always wanted to be a chef. And the reason was we didn't have much food in the house. So I was always in the cupboards looking and creating things. And so began my passion for food. So when I left or got kicked out of home at 15 and went straight into cooking and learning, I was lucky because there was a lot of at that time European chefs here in New Zealand, and they were doing what we call scratch cooking, which means making everything um, from your base ingredients. There wasn't a lot of processed food in those days, and so even things like doing all the bakery,
mm,
butchery, you'd get in a half a cow or a quarter of a cow, a whole sheep, and you'd learn how to do everything from scratch. And that really formed a good basis for me. I was always working, always passionate. 6 days, 80-hour week was probably the norm for me in those days, working 2 jobs, going to Polytech or cooking school and that. But I was just so passionate about it. Now, the thing with hospitality is, and you'll see some of the TV programs and that, which are real, it has quite a wild life attached to it, and which does involve the alcohol and the drugs. So I was lucky that I woke up at one time and I went, nah, I can't keep going with all of that stuff, and I looked around me and I saw chefs, alcoholic, burnt out. But what I also started to see at that age was the changing of food in the industry. And it was more about money, more about convenience. And so the change happened there, and it was because it was about the money and giving a return back to the stakeholder. We started to change the way that we were doing things, and we were using a lot of pre-prepared products, especially when I was working in the States. Everything was portion control. And as an example, one time they run out of mayonnaise, and there was a big panic on. And I says, well, let's just make some. And they went, what do you mean make some? How do you make that? So there was that shift in the change. But also I saw a shift and a change in society because of this food that we were now ingesting, and our pace of life started to speed up. It was more fast food, instant gratification, people eating on the run. And I started to see people around me, my customers, and society start to change and shift. People were getting stressed out mentally, emotionally, and there was this kind of disconnection with themselves, but also a disconnection with natural food and with nature. Cities was a thing, and I've lived in as you said, in Boston. I've been in New York, Florida, and that. Different cities around the world. And when I was young, it was amazing. It was great, fast paced and that. But I realized we were all kind of living on top of each other. And it was that energetic vibration and the artificial way that we were living. I felt it inside myself, in my body, my mental, my emotional self. And as I said, I woke up and I went, nah, this is really impacting me and impacting the people. And that's when I began my journey of self-development, human transformation. And that was back in about the mid-80s. And so I started to change what I was doing. I chose at that time to become a vegetarian. I don't so much promote it. I still integrate good quality organic meat into my cuisines and that. Veganism is not something that I do, but it's more about eating really healthy food. At the same time, as I went into this personal development, I started connecting, and that's the funny thing how life unfolds, is when you're ready, these kind of teachers appear. So as well as I was in the hospitality, I started to exploring out, and some of the wisdom keepers, some of the Native American people, or here in New Zealand, some of the Waitaha people and various cultures. And I started to learn, like when I was in Vanuatu, I learned from what they call the clevers or the magicians. And they would take me out into the bush, and they would show me the herbs and the very spices, and that were for health and healing as well. I learned shamanism with a Native American, and he started to show me about connection with life. And the one thing I started in my noticing was that everything had an energetic field. And because I was separated from myself and separated from nature, there was this stress inside myself, and I see it so much in people who are not connected with nature and just the way that we're living. And as you beautifully said, Payman, that whatever we're ingesting in the way of what we're listening to, what we're speaking, what we're watching TV, whatever, all has an impact. So
Absolutely.
what I found, yep. So what I found was when I started to connect on a deeper level, my life changed. And all of a sudden, I started becoming more respectful around food. So I started to, no matter where I was, so like even if I was living in a city and working in a fine dining there, I would still network out into the farms or into the collective to try and get the most natural, organic food that I could. Because as a chef, I owe that to the people I'm serving.
Mhm.
Because I'm serving, I don't want to serve them poison and toxins. I want to serve them the best food. So I can do that with the best tasting and it looks really fancy. But is it healthy? Does it really nourish them and nourish them, their soul? So I started looking at taking a more holistic, and then that started getting me into the field of life coaching, NLP, naturopathy, food for medicine. So they became, it was quite a crossover.
Mm.
And then when I was probably about 12 years ago, it started off as a cookbook. Then I realized I couldn't just do a cookbook. It was about, healthy food, yes. But if I was doing healthy food, I was looking at um, like with diets, 98% of people um, don't succeed in their diets. And I started saying, well, why? What are the counter intentions? What is the story, not only in their head, but in their body that blocks them from succeeding, not only in their diet, but in life? So it started as a cookbook, and then I started adding in mental and emotional components to it. And then now it's morphed into a uh, quite a like it's a 5 module, 10 workshop transform and heal your life program. And I was looking to launch that, but in the research, I realized that not everybody has that attention span that
Mm.
that we have now. So what I learned was people are looking for something right now. What can they do? So what I've done is I'm leading off with the Soulfire Cuisine and doing some cooking classes. But within those cooking classes, I'm also talking about the health benefits of the food, using it as medicine. And then that starts to funnel out into a more holistic view of
Mm.
health, food, and cuisine. So yeah, that's probably a short version of a yeah, quite an amazing journey. So yeah,
Beautiful. We're gonna dive into that in a moment. But first of all, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you as a person. Ready?
yeah, sure, cool.
What makes you happy as a person?
Having beautiful relationships, honest with people.
Mm.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I'm not into bullshit. I'm like I really enjoy honest, open, and deep conversations with people.
I love that.
Yeah,
What makes you smile?
uh, life, the joy.
Mm.
Um, at the moment, the biggest joy in my life is my grandchildren. I've
Mm.
got a granddaughter who's 2 years old and a grandson, and wow, I've never felt my heart just so woo open and full. So they've taught me a lot. And it's
Beautiful.
different because when you're a parent, you're right amongst it. But as a grandparent, you get the good things. And then when their nappy needs is changing, you can hand them back, or if they're getting cranky. But so, no, there is a lot of joy in that. And of course, my partner, Sandra, I've never had a relationship so deep and so honest with somebody. and it
Beautiful.
really is for both of us. It's challenging because it's about showing up completely in your truth without your bullshit. And if you've got something going on, it's owning it and working your way through it. So yeah.
Oh, love that. Now let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your heart sing? What sets your soul on fire?
The future, the
Mm,
future, or my version when because the last few years there's been a lot going on, and yeah, it's really, I'm not trying to bypass it with a spiritual
mm,
elevation, observing it, all that, because the last 3-4 years have been really challenging, and man, they push me to my knees and certain there, but there's so much growth. But if I focus on the problems, my own problems, and trying to, um, make life work and all of that, if I get so caught up in that, my energy lowers. But when I look at solution based, when I look at, yeah, this is the way that I am, and I've accepted myself with all my faults and whatever, but I also accept everybody else with all their, and I don't even see them as faults. Like they send, say, some young people to me, especially the young fellas. Some of them been in gangs and that, so they come in with fair bit of trauma.
mm-hmm.
And the first thing I do, and I remember one young fella being brought to me, and his mother was saying, yeah, he's been diagnosed with PhD or whatever, XYZ, and they've got him on Ritalin and all of this sort of thing. And the guy had his hoodie on and just all shut down. And I went, hey, look, we're talking about him rather than to him. He's here. So
Mm,
I went, hey, how are you? And I took him off, and we went off outside, and I started a conversation with him. And as I say to everybody, there's nothing wrong with you.
that's true.
It's your belief that is being projected onto you that something is wrong. It's that sense of wrongness that creates more wrongness and
Mm,
shuts us all down. So it's not that because there's some gold within all of that. But if we take that's wrong, and I see it as a challenge or an opportunity for growth. But it also takes us to turn and face our trauma, face whatever's going on in our life. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. And they don't know how to do that because they don't even know who they are. And I was one of them. I was one of these guys that, kind of had that childhood and became that victim. And then society said, this is how you have to be. And in the chef's game, there was a lot of competition and all of that. So I had this persona, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And it wasn't until life broke down and I broke down that I started to peel away the layers that have been imposed on me, and starting to face, well, yeah, this is my stuff, and look at it and face it and say, hey, okay, yeah, I own this, and grow from it. Sometimes people say my life is shit, and I say, yeah, but that's shit we can turn into fertilizer for our soul. And that's the thing. And it's not always trying to bypass things. It's about, yeah, I hear you where you're at.
mm-hmm.
But the thing is, do you want to stay there? And especially
Totally.
with the young fellas, I get, well, no. Well, what do you want? I don't know. And I says, well, you do know something. And they'll go, what? And I say, you know that you don't know. And then we start from that. And it starts to help them break out of the mold. And like this young fella that I was talking to before, this young fella is out there now. In a couple of weeks, I'm doing the opening ceremony with him. He's going to be playing his didgeridoo at a Body, Mind, Spirit festival. He's doing art. He's living his life with his expression. He's got a website. He's becoming successful because he no longer believed what other people believed about him.
Mm,
And then, but the thing is, it's what I call moving from the line of life, which is the victimhood, which is the bed, blame, excuse, deny. And I've been there, blaming the world, making excuses. Yeah, I had this childhood, and denying that I'm the problem. This has been done to me, rather than getting my awe out, which is ownership, accountability, responsibility. So unless we're taking action, and that's the key, and it's not just action from your problems, it's if we want to succeed, all of those visions and dreams that we have, and people go, yes, that's what I want to do in life. But to move from dreams and to really, and visions, to manifest them, it's about taking action, but not having other people do it for you. So yeah, that's what really sets me alive, is working with people. Because I have to say, I was doing a lot of that work before, and it was more the patch and repair at the bottom of the cliff, you know, and that's where a lot of society is. And they have to wait till they hit rock bottom before they get help. So I'm going, well, that's the problem that we have. Let's get to the top of the cliff and see why people are doing that, but also come up with some solutions. And then that's when I started working in schools, and I started doing youth guarantee programs, and that is around education. You know, here in New Zealand, we've got a quarter of our school kids self-harming. And in one school, there's about 45% of them in counselling. So, geez, you know, let's rather than throwing more money at more counsellors or more trying to band-aid and fix it, but then that changing the environment, that's a global thing. And that's the bigger picture stuff. And that's what really excites me. I'm with some people around the world at the moment, creating and manifesting these groups. It's like these beacons of light shining around. Rather than talking about all the problems in the world, I'm feeling like I'm doing something. And this is what the Soulfire Cuisine is. I'm becoming a living example here at the Sanctuary, 10-acre property, you know, where instead of saying, oh, the world's this and that, it is this and that. But let's create something that people can actually come and tangibly feel. And that's where we've got food forests here. We've got the gardens. We're working with nature and in harmony. We've got people that live in conscious collaborative living here. And we all, like today, this morning, we were all out as a group and gathering the firewood for the winter. 2 weeks ago, we were doing all the fruit, and I was bottling it and making pickles and freezing it and all of that. So it's all of those community associations and experiences that we're looking at, being a living example and bringing people in and saying, this is, for us, this is our version. I'm not saying that this is everybody's version, but this is our way and our version of making a difference in the world.
Awesome.
We can talk about it, or we can do a living example. So that's what we're doing.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. What makes you sad and angry? Remember, this is a rapid fire question series.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, look, what really upset me, and that was a few years ago, and that initiated some changes in myself when I was mandated out of my job. I was working as well as here, and I was transitioning here into full-time as a chef. I wanted to make a difference in aged care. So I went into aged care, and I saw what was happening in some of them, and some of the food that they were giving, not too flashy, but also a lot of it was like, say, soup, powdered soup out of a packet, that kind of thing. You know, where's the nutrition? Where's the nourishing? Things like that. And it's not saying it's all across New Zealand, because there's a lot of people making a change. But I wanted to make a change And so for 5 years, and I was working at the national level and the local level, and they'd bring their chefs to me and I'd show them the scratch baking or scratch cooking. So making all the soups from fresh. I'd bring in produce from home and all of that sort of thing, but not just nurturing them with food. You know, I love to sing, and I'd be out there singing in the
Wow.
dining room and creating an energetic. So instead of them all kind of sitting there, that was like, yay, you know, and life started. So I'd have to say I got pretty pissed off when I was told, because of I am a healthy person, very seldom that I get sick, and then to be told that I would lose my job because of my health choices and not choosing, and I have no, I'm not either way, but to take the choice away from me, that pissed me off. And
Absolutely.
so I went up and I was in the protests. I went up to Parliament here and I was there up there protesting. But then I had a realization when I was up there and I was looking at, and there was no engagement with us. It was, I'm actually giving my energy away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had this intuitive sense of, no, I want to put my energy instead of fighting, because when I fight, I get angry. My brain goes dyslexic. The rage in my body, you know, some of that comes in, and that, and I, you know, I want to fight. But that's not me. I'm a lovely. That's why my name's Jonny Bear, because I love giving hugs. I've got a lot of love from this beautiful heart, and that's me.
Is that your real name, or
But like,
is that a nickname you gave yourself?
no, it's a name that was, I was given the name Yona or Bear by the Native American people, by a
Okay.
chief there. And rather than, so I used Yona for a while. And my bear is my totem animal. And it taught me about introspection, going inside your cave. And us men are very good at that, going inside a cave, reflecting. So I did a lot of inner work. And then when I came out, it was about sharing that, and the, you know, spring, it's about the flowers and the bees and the honey,
Mm.
and that, and that's the bear medicine. So that's what I was doing, was bear medicine there for a while. You know, it's when we touch our hearts, there's an energetic feel which happens, and that oxytocin that comes in, and especially if we hug for longer than say 5 seconds, like a lot of people say that kind of social modern way, but bring it in
Mm.
and give that. When our hearts connect, there is a lot more that's going on there. So yeah, so that's what got me angry. And then I realized, hey, that anger has divided me inside myself, and it divided a lot of people as well. And I went, no, I don't want to be part of the problem. So I came back, and since I've been back, I've been committed. I've finished off my course. I'm now doing the Soulfire Cuisine. So yeah, that's rocking me now. It's like, bless all the people who are still at there fighting, and that, thank you very much. But I'm about, what does the future look like? And yeah, I might have a crystal ball. Oh yeah, it's next to the dragon there. But I you know, we can vision that. That's the exciting part. What possibilities and opportunities for humanity, you know, and oh, I'm choosing to be part of, you know, the healing, and there'll be some process around some people to help them let go and come back into balance for themselves. Some people will do that very quickly. Others will want accountability and the witch hunt and all of that. That's not in my field. And then when we can have that resolution and then come to the place and have these, what I call conscious conversations about the way that life looks. And people say, oh, you're deluded, Jonny, if you think that's what's going to happen. Well, it's going to happen in my world. And that's all that I need to do, is because, yeah, a lot of that going around, and people say controls and duality and all of that. But all it takes is one person, one at a time. And if I'm doing that and there's other people doing that, change happens. But if I sit back in my anger and my frustration, then yeah, things aren't going to change. I'm just going to energetically keep feeding the situation and body slamming against life.
Absolutely.
I'm coming from this beautiful heart that is singing and filled with love, and it's not bliss bunny stuff. It's real.
Mm.
I have passion for people, no matter where they're at in their life or what's going on. Hey, and if somebody doesn't want that help, then that's okay. They're maybe not
Indeed.
ready, or somebody else. Yeah.
Indeed. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Uh, passion. Passion.
Mm. Love that.
I've always been passionate. I've always been the motivator, um, the funny guy, like at school. Nah, sorry, I was the guy down the back of the class having a good time. I was really good at sports. If there was something that interested me, then yep, I was in there. And I don't negate school. It's good for some people, but I like to be on my feet. I like to be active, full of life, doing it. And that's why I was in the school shows and
Mm.
and plays and all of that. I love the arts, the action side of life. I
Mm.
have learnt the true benefits of being grounded, and especially in businesses and having plans and all of that. But my thing that I really do, my superpower, is these ideas or these intuitive things come in through me because I open up my mind, and woof, it's not so much that I can speak of them, but I can put them into action. I would say my not so superpower is, and that's where it's great when somebody else is there, is to pick it up, and I've got a team behind me, because otherwise, after a while, I go, been there, done that. What's next? And yeah, so yeah, things that I've learned in life. But my passion is people, humanity, nature. I love getting in the garden. I was out there today. Uh, yeah, life,
Beautiful.
being alive. Yeah,
That's it. Being alive and just feeding that inner child inside of you. Absolutely. Love that.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
let's move forward. You like traveling, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. We can do an entire show just on traveling, but I want to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory line. Go back to when you were growing up. You know, when we were kids, people around us, family, relatives, friends, teachers, neighbors always ask us, "Hey, Johnny, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What was your answer to that question as a young boy?
It was always from the time I was about 8 years old, a chef. I already knew
Really?
at eight
Wow.
years old I'm going to be a chef. Yeah. And by then I had done quite a bit of traveling as well, because my dad, I was born over in Great Britain in the UK,
Mm.
and he was in the Navy, so we were stationed in different places like Singapore, and then we came to New Zealand in 1967, and then when I was 15, I was off again. So I was working from about 12 years old after schools and bakeries and that. And I might start off sweeping the floor, and I'd be talking to the baker or something, and then he'd say, "Oh, okay," and he'd show me some things, and then I'd end up helping there, washing dishes in restaurants, and then the chef would get me to cook when I came in, to put his chickens on. Yeah, I got in trouble once when I burnt them because I forgot, but hey, I was only about 14 then, so yeah, I think
Awesome.
he put a bit, yeah.
What would you
So yeah,
say? What was your relationship with school growing up? Did you love school or did you hate school?
um, I love school for its social aspect. I didn't like it, especially when I went to the higher, well, I don't know what you call it overseas, and that we call it you sort of have primary, intermediate, then you go to college or to so college is generally when you're about 13 to 16. So when I went there, my first day of school, and back in those days here in New Zealand, you had corporal punishment, which mean they could strap your hands or the big sticks. So first day of school, there's Johnny looking out the window going, wow. And this big history teacher was like, boys, concentrate on your work there. And I was like, yeah, okay. Looking out the window again and that. So the third time he says, right, pick up your book, stand on your chair, stand on the desk in front of the class and do your work there.
Wow. Standing on the desk. Wow.
So I went, nah, I doubt it. So he took me down, this is my first day of school, so he took me down to the gymnasium and beat me so bad I had to see a doctor.
Really?
And that. So I started to relate, especially things like that, education, because my attention, they would probably diagnose me with something. And I say to sometimes school is really good for people who enjoy academic learning, facts and all of that. My kind of learning is experiential. So the classes that were learning about life for hands-on science and that, I excelled in them. And now I was a year ahead of my education. And I was also in what they call the top stream, which is for the so-called higher IQ people. So it wasn't as if I was stupid, but putting me a year ahead wasn't so good because I developed slower, physically. And so there was all of that sort of stuff that I went through. Yeah, so school, yeah, I was good at dodging and weaving through it and enjoyed the social part. I did learn some things. But as soon as I was 15, I was out of home, out of school, and I was going to Technical Institute, learning as a chef 4 days a week. And then I was working 6 days a week as well. So, yeah. And that's why I did so well, so young, so soon. I started at 15. So when I was 23, and that's kind of unheard of, an executive chef of a hotel in Boston. And that's just because I'm passionate, I'm good with people, and I love food, anything to do with food. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Imagine that we were in the same class, say in grade 10 or 11. What kind of student were you? Were you the shy type, the life of the party? Were you the nerd, the superstar? What kind of student, what kind of young boy were you back then?
Yeah, I was probably the wild one. I wasn't bad doing things bad, but having said that, years later, I went to do transcendental meditation, and one of the quiet ones who was teaching at that, he came to me after and he says, "You're the last person I thought I would see at a meditation class." And I went, "What do you mean?" He says, you were so bad at school." And I'm going, yeah. So I was kind of the mischievous one, full of life. I was very good at sports, in a lot of
What was your favorite
sport.
sport?
I like here in New Zealand, it's rugby. I mean, I did league. I was a school champion swimmer. So yeah, I did really well. And then I got into some martial arts as well. My stepfather was a boxer from the SAS. My
Wow.
father was a wrestler. So it was kind of inbuilt into us and that. So sports really good at. Probably the thing I didn't appreciate is when they made me head prefect of the school, because the school I was going to, it wasn't a prestigious title. You actually became a target, and that was just the school that I was in, which was more of a lower socio school and that. So yeah, I dodged and weaved a little bit, and so as soon as I was 15, I was out of home, out working. And then when I was 17 and a half, I did my traveling. I jumped on a ship from New Zealand and went over to Australia, to Sydney. And that was like a little boy in a candy store just going, wow. And so began quite a few years of traveling around the world, different countries, different cuisines, Bermuda, as I said, the States. I was over in the UK again, Switzerland. So
Nice.
yeah.
Beautiful. We'll go into that in a moment. But one last question I have to you about your time at school. Were you popular with the ladies?
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
I was popular, but I was also loving,
Mm.
and that wasn't so recognized in the school that I was in. That was like not something that you were so did. Having said that, when I was influenced by others, there are, those kids things that you do a bit of teasing that I wasn't so proud of. But I was always the one that people would go to, and I was always, if I saw something happening, bullying or people ragging on somebody, then I would step in and change things. So yeah, I loved love. I loved romance. I used to write poetry and love letters, that kind of thing. I used to climb up this tree, this willow tree, and carve the girlfriend's names in it. But also, while I was up that tree, that was my escape tree.
Mm.
Years later, I learned for my month in May, willow, which was the tree, is the totem tree for that month, that birth month. But I used to sit up there, when I'd run away from home and they brought me back 2 or 3 times, and I came in, and that's where I would hide, at the top of the tree. And I remember looking out over the hood and up to the mountains and over in the trees and that. And there was this presence, this voice saying to me, don't worry, Jonny, life will get better for you. And I realize now that it's an aspect of myself, as I've done
Mm.
my inner child work, actually going back and speaking to that myself as a, I wouldn't say completely healed, but somebody who's done a lot of work, and able to go back and nurture and hug and be with my inner child. So yeah.
Beautiful. Love that. Love that. Now, do you remember what was the very first job and how much you got paid the first time you worked?
Yes. I used to get $1.01 for doing this. Wasn't a paper round, but delivering, what do you call it, pamphlets. So
Okay.
you got this big stack of pamphlets, then you had to fold them all up, then you put them on the saddlebag of your bike, and then you went around and you deliver. Fair to say, I didn't last too long in that.
How long did you
It was
last?
more probably 2 months.
Wow.
It just yeah, 2 months of doing it, and it was more the folding it all up, and
Mm.
then at the end of the day, yeah, I was not so grateful there. $1.01, and I thought,
Love the one
geez, that
cent. I love the 1 cent.
yeah, $1.01 made
Yeah.
no sense
Yeah.
in that. So
That was
yeah,
also my first job I was doing back here in Canada. I was doing flyers for a pizza place. In the
oh
winter,
yeah,
uh, I was getting paid $5 an hour. We did it on the weekend, and I lasted maybe one, at most 2 weekends. One of the friends I did it with, they would just take the entire bunch and just throw him at in a garbage can, and it just
yeah.
he's done for the day. He was just chill. And the second time, he got actually caught because the guy that was dropping us, he actually followed us, and he saw him putting the flyers in the garbage can. Say, okay, he came and said, "You done? Yes. Okay, well done. Come here. I want to take you to somewhere." He took us all in the car to the garbage can and say, "What's it? What's it there?" Say, "Go find out." Say, "What?" And we were like, so he,
Yeah, have
he
to say
wanted.
I was guilty towards the end too.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, it was fun. It was fun. Anyways, awesome. Now let's move forward. Let's talk about You know, there's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by that, I mean, the story we tell ourselves on our head all day long. So when you're Johnny, when you're at some of your lowest, darkest, most challenging times in your life, how do you change the story how do you change the story internally inside of your mind, instead of your head, to change your reality externally?
Change it for them or change it for myself?
No, for you. How did you basically get yourself out of the rut you were and some of your darkest time in your life?
I looked at that life wasn't really, yeah, when I was really down and rock bottom, and it was, nobody's going to help me here. I've got to do it myself. And the changes start with me. And the change was about me stop blaming everybody else. And it was like, what can I do today? What is it I can do today to start changing my story? Because a lot of people with the best of intentions, and I spoke before about, dieting, and I don't even use the word so much diet anymore. It's about a lifestyle. So people with the best of intentions, yes, the new quick fix program, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. But if there is a program, and I think you're alluding to that, changing it up in here, if there's a loop of the story, but it's not just mentally, but it's stored somatically in our body, in our emotional self, and it's also our metaphysical self. So once we realize that it's not just all up in here, that's part of it. When we start working, and that's where I use the term holistic, which means the kind of seeing yourself as a whole, not just this persona. And I dealt in shadow work as well. But what I found was, what really worked for me was some small steps, because sometimes change doesn't happen until life really sucks so much that staying where you are is harder than actually changing. And I think it was Jimi Hendrix who said, nothing happens until staying the same. The power of that is greater than the power of change. Because it's like, say, when I work with somebody who's been abused, especially the abused woman, they're not going to change, a lot of them, because the thought of leaving an abusive relationship and financial security and going to a woman's refuge, for some of them, that seems more painful and more suffering than the actual leaving. So that's why a lot of people stay in that, because there's nothing out there, because of their kind of seeing it from their perception, but it's a distorted perception, but it's not always like that. So the way that I help myself, if I bring it back to myself, is say, well, one is, the first thing I know is that this is not what I want right here, right now, and it stops with me. So, but that's okay. But what is it that I do want? And a lot of people say, I don't know. This is all I've known. So if we want to move to something, and it's not kind of doing this big, and they do help, these mind maps and road plans and things like that, they do help to focus, but sometimes they can put it so far away from us. It's like if we look at society at the moment, and somebody who's feeling really bad about themselves, and then this guru kind of person or this beautiful being comes in and said, be like me, and somebody's not feeling like that, that gap is so hard. All it does is push them down. Well, if I bring it back to myself, that's all I felt was worse, when somebody's reflecting back to me how big a gap between me and who I want to be is. So what I do is, what works for me is, just for today, just now, I know that I'm wanting to change. And if I'm wanting to change, that's going to take action. But also I know that if I'm changing and going to change, there are, within the mind and the body, there are counter intentions and blocks and programs that will, no matter how many mantras or whatever I'm going to do every day, there's the inner critic and the self-judgment and all of those programs that are going to say, and you start to feel good and it's like, yay. And then as all of this talk starts to come in, and then you start to stumble, and then it goes, see, I told you so, and all of this. So for me, it helps to start initiating. And part of the program that I do is 10 easy steps that you can go, right, I've hit the deck. And I hit the deck now and again. We all do. If we don't, then we're not growing. And when I hit the deck, I pick myself up and I go, right, what is it? Yeah, okay. And then I start using my steps, which are really easy steps. And when I start to do that, then when I'm feeling in a bit of a better place, and I can go, wow, what the was that about? And then I can, by doing some inquiry, some mindful inquiry without psychoanalyzing, sometimes that shows me what the blocks. Now, for myself, I would say most of it has been programs and belief systems that was created from when I was a child. And the same with the people that I work with. There's all of these childhood programs and beliefs and trauma that are still locked into our psyche, into our body, into our beliefs, that we go, right, I'm going to change. And then they'll come in because we haven't done some of that work. And for everybody, it's a different way. And there are simple things they can do. But to me, it's just, so when I do my, which happens, that's the nature of life. You know, if there's not challenges arising, then I'm bypassing life, because as I understand it, and I think it's Peregrine's new theory, is every organism or cell looks for equilibrium with its environment, but the environment is constantly changing. And if we're not constantly changing and adapting, then what happens is our environment, if we go, no, this is who I am, and we try to hold on to ourselves, and that life pushes in onto us, the environment is changing. And because we're not flexible and adapting, then boom, we have what's called these breakdowns or life crises. And that's what happens in nature as well. The organism can no longer sustain that environment, so it breaks down. But what happens is it'll form in a new form that is now in equilibrium with the new environment. So yeah.
Beautiful. Love that. You mentioned that you traveled a lot. So when you left New Zealand at, what was it, 17, you said? You went to Australia first?
About 17 and a half, yeah. And I went to Australia, and I was there for a couple of years.
Tell us about your travels. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, the travels were, and that was the good thing that I had, and that was what really helped me was a chef. Everybody in the world eats. So it was, apart from places where you needed a visa or something, but then sometimes people let you work here and there and whatever. So I went from Australia, and there was a whole group of us in the hospitality. I think there was 12 of us who were going to do this big trip. And at that time, they used to have what's called the Clone Trail, which was through Asia, then up into the Middle East, and then over into Europe. And it was you hitchhiked and up through the islands and all of that, Bali and all of that. So we were going to do that, and then people dropped off. And then what happened was the Iranian crisis. And so with that, the Middle East was kind of shut down there for a while. So instead of doing that, what I chose to do was go straight to Europe. So I flew to Europe and just arrived, got off the plane and started, I think it was, Frankfurt, Germany. And I was having a wonderful time because of my nature, and I'm really interested in people. And one thing I've learned, if you've ever read The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, he talks about it. You know, when you're energetical field and you're in this flow state, then you're going to meet other people in that same flow state and opportunities happen. So I was in the flow state, and there was only one person that still wanted to come. And she was probably about the same age as me. I think at that time I would have been about 19. And she was a young Australian Italian girl. And she says, "Oh, can I come with you?" And I says, "Well, I'm just going to free flow." And she went, "Oh, yep, that's okay." Short story with that is, when I went there a week early, and I loved it. When she arrived, she had all of this fear with her, and all German people to her seemed aggressive. And it was like, "Oh, okay, well, let's go here." And we go there to the Oktoberfest. "Oh, no, this is too much." So I started to go, "Geez, what am I going to do? I've got somebody here that's impacting my journey, and I didn't want to just leave her." And then she said, "Well, she had a sister in Belgium." So I went there, and she connected with her sister, so I moved on. So we had gone to Switzerland. I spent about 3 months in Switzerland, and I was working in a chateau there, and then I would work there for about a couple of weeks, get a little bit of pocket money from them, and then I'd just hitchhike and travel around Switzerland and that. So then I went over to Great Britain. I traveled around there for a while. I did a lot of cooking there. So I was there for about 2-3 years. Then I went to Bermuda.
Wow.
I was there for about 18 months in Bermuda. Absolutely loved it. Became a beach bum and all of that. And then there was, in those days, well, I think you still got spring break. In those days, spring break, and the chefs had warned me about it, and I'm going, "Yeah, right." Would be, I think in those days, about 7,000 people arriving, and most of them were women coming to Bermuda. And so the man power there, or whatever, there wasn't so many, so there'd be like happening, and I wasn't so much into that, but I met somebody really that I connected with, and she invited me over to Boston. And while I was over there, a hotel said to me, "Oh, look, we've heard of you and the work that you're doing," and so offered me a job. So then I spent 4 years in the States, mainly in Boston, but I did a year down in Florida. Then from there, I came back to New Zealand, and then I went to Vanuatu, and I was there for about 5 years. Then I came back to New Zealand and did a lot more traveling around. And yeah, now been about 20 years in the South Island. Yeah. Oh no, and then we went over to, and we did Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Bali, and that. So no, Koh Samui. That's right. So
Wow.
still some traveling to do. So yeah.
Amazing. Wow, what a life. What a life. You should definitely write a book about your trips, your travels, life as a chef around the world. That would be a fascinating read, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, people have said that. But yeah. That'll come. That'll come.
Awesome. Let's wrap today's up for today, and we'll do a part 2 to talk about your business and all that. But there's so much more to cover. So if someone wants to connect with you, Jonny, what's the best way to do so?
Probably via Facebook at the moment. We're in the I've got I'm also the director of the Wellbeing Foundation. And then we have the Sanctuary Charitable Trust, where we raise funds for the people that can't, who otherwise wouldn't have access to it, financially. And now I'm also promoting the Soulfire Cuisine, because I'm feeling that everybody around the world eats. So it's a good introduction that then comes down to help people unpick themselves as well. Because as you said right at the start beautifully, it's what we ingest and how it impacts our lives. So I guess my inroad is showing up as a chef, an international chef, and then going, right, I'll help you with the healthy food. But behind that, let's start unpicking your life a little bit. and here's how to use food for medicine and all of that. So if you want to connect with me, probably the best way to do is friend me on Facebook. So it's what is it, Jonny Bear NZ, or Soulfire Cuisine with Jonny Bear. Now, if you do connect with me, please put in there that you've payment, because man, there's so many scams coming in, and I, get a whole lot there, and then all of a sudden I'm off to somebody's website and, just not into that, or it's Bitcoin or something like that. So yeah, looking for real, genuine, honest people. And yeah, I'm not here to not so much waste my time, but waste my energy and that. So if you want a genuine connection, sharing, then hey, that's me.
I'm with
If
you
you
on
want to
that,
sell
brother.
me something,
Absolutely, I'm
yeah.
on that with you. Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I'm excited that we connected. I'm delighted. I'm honored, and I can't wait for part two. So book a time for next week. I would say next week we'll talk about that. So yeah. Listen, I salute you. You're truly there with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world, the presence, your impact, your dishes, your work, your stories, everything you do. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. You're a true leader with a heart. You're a true gift yourself. Keep sharing your gifts. You're a gift yourself, Johnny. So stay safe, stay
And
awesome.
so
God
are
bless
you,
you.
Payman.
Talk to you next
So are
time.
you, Payman. You are a gift too. And together we can change all this. We
Absolutely.
can become the change we wish to see in the world.
Absolutely.
And
One
thank
person
you.
at a time. Take care. Cheers.
Okay.